No.
All right. Hey guys, I am really excited to have Kara Lambert with us today, talking all things psychology. Now, Kara, first of all, thank you for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome, Nick. Thanks for having me here to talk to you guys about the psychology of, well, marketing. Let's face it.
Well, it's kind of everything at the moment. So, I mean, we just spoke about all the letters behind your name on LinkedIn at the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
To set it up, like your background, who are you? What have you done, and what do you do?
Who am I? What have I done? What do I do? I've got a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and French. And I was just saying to Nick earlier, this was in the time before psychology was a year 12 subject and before psychology was its own little degree. So you had to kind of do this starting stuff first.
Yeah.
The other half is management qualifications. So take, how people think and management, and you smush them together. Okay. I really cut my teeth on this in the federal government and helping veterans, incidentally, and getting veterans online. Can you imagine trying to get a 60-year-old back in the early noughties online?
My uncle is one of them, yeah.
So, talk about pushing stuff uphill. That was me trying to get veterans online back then.
Okay.
And that's where I cut my teeth, and that's where I really learned. Well, actually, I learned how to motivate staff, and then I looked at the psychology that sat behind it, and I went, you know what? This just applies to people in general. It doesn't just apply to staff. It applies to us. It applies online. And then I started my own business. It was a little handmade business, bless. And I learnt all of the changes through the Facebook algorithms.
Yep.
Like, this was before pages existed, ads existed, the algorithm existed. So I've seen all of the changes, all of the algorithm changes, and been able to test through all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Big backstory.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so I've got so much to unpack with you here, but just to touch on something you just said, as far as you were marketing on pages before the pages and the algorithms and the paid campaigns. Now, I started marketing on Facebook back in 2012, back before paid. That was just my personal page. So back before pages, algorithms, ads, all that kind of thing. How long have you been marketing on social or using social media?
Let me see. What are we, 2021? Probably 2012 as well.
Okay. All right, good. So coming up to a decade as well. So, all right, you know your stuff then. That's awesome. So, look, the two things I want to look at today is you're obviously in South Australia, where I'm here in Sydney's East. We're in two very different cultures at the moment. We, like we were saying off air before, a lot of Sydney-siders are rushing to the 11 o'clock update. And it's not just for that doom scrolling or that negativity. It's just things are changing so quickly. We want to be updated. Even yesterday, the rules changed again. And then, you get on social media and everyone has an opinion. And then you get through the day, you finally sit down for a glass of wine at night and it's all over the news. So from a media point of view, that's something I do want to get into with the psychology of what you're putting out and understanding how it's going to be received, but also from a business owner's point of view. I mean, there's a lot of business owners who, and I've got massive respect for every business owner at the moment, because there's a lot of people who are really trying to navigate, especially now after 19 months, trying to keep staff motivated, trying to ensure the staff and let them know, look, there still will be a role here. So they're the kind of two things, if you're cool with that, to talk about it.
Cool.
So why don't we start with the business side of it? Oh, sorry.
So I think the biggest thing to think about is what are the core values for your business and what are your personal core values? Because I know so many of us use our personal profiles to back up our marketing. Yep. I know I do it. I use my public posts on my personal profile to back up who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And so I think if anything that you put out on social media is true to your core values, so mine's courage.
Yeah.
And then my business is, honesty, integrity, truth, intelligence, psychology, they're core values.
Yeah.
So as long as you are marketing in sync with that, you're going to be good.
Okay.
Right? And don't, unless your MO, your profile type is the common shit stirrer, and there's a place for them, I've got to be honest.
I'm guilty of that at times, yeah.
Just don't.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that we've got, and there's a lot of research around propaganda, and Cambridge Analytica and Hillary Clinton campaign and Brexit and all of that have a lot to answer for, and they're probably the big ones that most people know about, in my opinion. The propaganda is out there. It exists. And the only way that we've got, the only tool that we have to actually combat it and affect our own personal psychology and the doom scrolling and the fear and the overwhelm is just to be, just to have some critical thinking about it. Like, is this person, like, is what they're saying in their own best interest, or is it in the interest of everybody else? Like, I put out a lot of information on my personal profile about vaccinations and COVID and stuff like that. It's because I'm sharing stuff from a relevant source, from a trusted source. The information can be backed. I'm coming from the right kind of place. The other part of it is not getting sucked into it, which can be really, really hard when all you see is negative stuff. There was a brilliant piece of research that I was actually part of that Facebook did back in the early days. So probably, I can't remember when it was, but I reckon it was 2014.
Okay.
It was the first piece of research that they did about the psychology of users on Facebook. And what they did is they adjusted people's profiles. And a whole group of people, they showed them just negative posts, and a whole group of people, they showed them positive posts. And what they found is, the people that saw the more negative topics and more negative posts made more negative posts themselves and more negative comments. And the ones that saw more positive posts had more positive posts and more positive comments. So what I'm kind of saying is have a look at it and go, why are you doing it? We all need a vent and a rant. And, Nic and I, before we came online, we were doing that because we get it. But unless your profile and your values align with being that negative Nancy ranty pants kind of shit stirrer, don't go there.
And I suppose there's two things there. There's someone's opinion that they're putting out and fact. And when you're saying that you're getting your facts from a credible source, Mrs. Smith down the road that posts something on Facebook is not a credible source. But you also mentioned about Facebook that the two, the positive and the negative content that they were putting out. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but Facebook still does pretty much control what you see in a way, doesn't it? The way the algorithms are. If you're engaging with negative content, the algorithms don't look at whether it's negative or positive for you to interpret or digest. They just look that you're engaging with that kind of content, So they're going to show you more of it.
Correct. And that is so true. The other thing is that we've got this thing called confirmation bias, where we will go and search out information that confirms what we believe. And so we will go and search that stuff out and we will share it and post more of it. And this is where the propaganda comes into play and the algorithm comes into play. And you've really got to be conscious of the credibility of the source and have that critical thinking, like, can I trust them? Is it reliable? Is it backed up in fact or science? Which is sadly being discredited at the moment. But, it's all these kinds of things, like, and be critical with what you're putting out before you actually put it out. So
for someone that is, let's say they've found themselves in the algorithm and it is all negative, how can they, and I'll give you an example, myself. So like we spoke about off air, consume with it. Yesterday, unknowingly, I made a Zoom appointment for 11 o'clock, which is when Gladys normally comes on. Now, I was kind of out the corner of my eye, kind of watching the numbers and all right, got it. Cracked on with it. I was on the phone till probably about 2 or 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, hadn't got on social, hadn't looked at the TV, hadn't done anything. Decided, okay, you know, it was a flat out morning. I'm going to go for a walk down the street, bought all fresh food, came home, started, you know, peeling potatoes and stuff like that. By the time I actually got to 6 o'clock, it was kind of like, oh, that's a shit day, but it wasn't consuming. So how can someone that's found themselves in that algorithm, how can they get out of it? How can they break that cycle?
It can be really, really hard, to be perfectly honest, because what you're doing is actually feeding your brain chemistry. Okay. So like you've got all of these hormones racing around in our heads naturally when we're on social media. So we've got the two big ones that would be when you're doom scrolling would be cortisol, which is fight or flight hormone, and dopamine, which is to do with addiction, basically. Yeah. And so all you're doing is pumping these things through your body, and you're going, yeah, I need more, tell me more, I've got to have this. Yeah. The only way is to put it down and engage in something else. So, you know, there can be, if you catch yourself, there's a couple of brilliant ways. Like Mel Robbins says the 5-second rule, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, done, out. Like leave it, move yourself. You're allowed to get outside. You are allowed to go to the shops for essential goods. Yeah. You can do this stuff. Unfollow people. Unfollow people, unfriend people, unfollow accounts, unlike accounts, like block people, seriously. It's your little space on social media. You're the one that controls it. And if you're allowing people to feed that and they bring you down, like, no.
Well, and I spoke to our friend, Ming Johansson, I think at the start of the year, and she said something very similar. And it took me a while to digest it, because when it first really happened here in Sydney, I was glued to the TV for that hour. I wanted to see what was happening. I needed to know what was happening for our clients, as far as when it comes to inspections and things like that. So I wanted to be up to speed. And then I started watching the questions and answers, but it's like that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule. It's like, like I said to you, saw the numbers yesterday. I can't do anything else about it. I'm not going to be online and stress about it for the rest of the day. What's done is done. What's happening is happening. Let's crack on with it. And it's it worked for me. And it's kind of, that's the goal for today. Another call after you. And then it'll be the same thing. It'll be a walk down the street or a run. Probably a walk, won't be a run. And come home.
Not unless someone's chasing you.
Yeah, no, I'll probably still just give up. I'm not a runner. So for a company at the moment, so we've got, as you know, I've got a lot of real estate and real estate industry and finance, and you know that industry that we work with. Where can they go wrong with what they're putting out for socials?
I think there's two ends of the scale. You could either join the fear mongering and add to the pressure, and I'm not a fan of fear marketing. Like I never have been. Or you can go Pollyanna and go, it doesn't exist. It's all, you know, roses and lollipops, and it, you know, everything's fantastic and everything's normal. It's like, oh, no, it's not. We've got to acknowledge it. But we don't have to like dwell on this stuff seriously. And I think that's where businesses can go. And if they understand what engages their audience. So like the research says is that it's like the most engaging social media. So there was a study done a few years ago about the top 100 engaging brands on social media in the US, right? And the researchers brought it back to a few things. Fear. What were the client's fears? What were the client's goals? And what were the client's motives? So if you understand what they are and you can show them how you address them, and motives, what I do is I go a little bit deeper on that. What are their needs? What are their beliefs? And what are their values? So you're getting all of the things that as people we need to know before we hire a real estate agent, before we buy a property, before we engage with a financial advisor, before we go to a lender. They're all of the things that we need to know and understand before we do these kinds of things. And it helps us choose which person we do, because I love you guys, but you're not unique. what
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of you out there, seriously, but what makes you unique, or what makes us choose one over another, is how we are.
Yeah. So no, that's a great point, because I think, and I want to come to you in a second about how language has changed since we both started almost a decade ago, because what we spoke about and how we portrayed ourselves a decade ago has changed now. And I'll use myself as an example. I just started in Sydney's East. I've been in the industry 17 years, just started in Sydney's East about 10 years ago. Didn't have any money for marketing, and I was going up against, all the bigger agencies. So I just pumped successes on my personal page. Look at me, look how good I am, 50 grand over reserve, 100 grand. And I was that guy. And, obviously in 2015, 2016, 2017, when the boom, we all did it. We were all rock stars. Things have changed now, whereas I'm seeing a lot of people hurting, a lot of people losing their jobs, a lot of people having to sell because they need to, there's no income. How has agents' language and approach to social got to change? Because you can't go and be boasting about, hey, look at me, I've just sold this for 100 grand over reserve, how good am I? And roll up in the Porsche in your videos and things like that. Because I think knowing how to read the room and knowing who is watching your stuff. Are you marketing to other agents, or are you marketing to your audience?
You've hit the nail on the head there, Nic.
Okay. Well,
because the thing is that by saying, like, it's all well and good as a vendor, like I sold my property, 2 years ago now, 3 years ago now, right? Yeah. So it's still fresh. And it sold for over reserve. Yeah. Thank you. Sold for a hell of a lot more than what most of the actual agents actually told us we were going to get for it.
You would have got more if I sold it. I'm just saying.
Of course I would have.
Yeah.
Seriously. But the thing is that it doesn't always work. It is understanding, are you trying to sell to another agent and one up another agent, or are you trying to get another client? Are you trying to get another vendor, or are you trying to get a buyer for your vendor? Yeah. Because a buyer doesn't care that you actually sold for $50,000, $100,000, $500,000 over reserve. In fact, that scares the crap out of them. Yeah. But it's great for the vendor. So it's a matter of metering your language, and unless you're trying to get onto one of these new shows where it's the high-end luxe,
I know. Yeah.
I was missing your face. I was looking for your face on the ad.
They rang, but I was just like, I'm too busy. You want ratings to go up, don't you?
But it is understanding like who your audience is and what engages them, what is going to be their drivers, their motivators, their motives behind actually using and choosing you over somebody else.
Okay, so if I was an agent, I came to you because you are a business coach, and I come to you and said, right, Kara, I'm at that crossroads, and this is what I say to a lot of our guys, is you still need to show success, but you need to show it in a different way now to what we did 10 years ago. How can an agent, for instance, and I know there's a lot of businesses out there as well, but how can someone show a success, still remain humble, and still connect? Because that can be a very difficult line to walk without looking too showy, but still saying, and still getting that tap on the back. You did do a great job, but you also need to appeal to someone who is about to lose their home, that you're still approachable enough that they can pick up the phone and call you. How can they do that?
So if we use the example of getting, say, $300,000, $500,000 over reserve. Yeah. Use testimonials to do that. Most of your clients, either a video testimonial or however you choose to do them, most of your clients don't know what to say when it comes to testimonials. So you tell them what to say and give them the script or write it for them and put it up that way. You know what? Nic was great. He was really approachable. He was honest. Amazed with what he did. He got us $500,000 over the reserve of what we were expecting. And that was like twice as much as what anybody else said that they were going to do for us. Really like Nic. He's a great guy. Make somebody else say that stuff.
But it's coming back to the psychology part. It's knowing when to get them to do it too, isn't it? I mean, as soon as that hammer comes, if it was me, as soon as that hammer comes down, I'll grab my owner, get in front of the soul board, get the camera up, give me a testimonial now, while they're still.
And that is the best time to actually do it for anyone. So if you're a lender, if you're a rental agent, if you're
like a car or something like that as well, someone's first car, yeah.
The best time to get a testimonial is directly after the sale.
Yeah,
like for anyone. So do it then. Because the other thing is that they are so hyped up, and they need that. There's two parts of psychology that fit in this. One is the law of reciprocity. So you've just done an awesome thing for them. Yeah. So they will want to do an awesome thing for you other than paying the commission. And the other part of that is that they need to have that confirmation made that they've made the right decision. So by you getting them in and giving the testimonial straight away, it's making them give that confirmation and reminding themselves that they made an awesome decision to go with Nic and to actually book him in and use his services. Okay. That's the two parts of that. That's why you need to do it there and then.
Okay, so I've got another one for you. This is one thing where I really, and it doesn't pertain to real estate. It's across all boards. Okay, it's something different for me. How do you speak to your followers versus how do you speak to a cold ad that you push out? So if you're just going to do an ad, let's say you're a car dealership and you've got a brand new Audi or something on, and you want to do, drop $100 on an ad or something like that. How is the language in that ad different to what you would put on your wall?
The difference is understanding where your clients are in the buyer cycle for me. So your ad is targeting someone who knows that they want to buy that particular car at that particular time, and that all they're doing is making the choice to go with you. Yes. Whereas your audience, you don't know where they are. You don't know if they know that they've got a problem yet, or what their problem is, or whether they're doing the research, or whether they want the confirmation of, the decision that they made. You don't know where they sit on that whole cycle in what's generally called the buyer life cycle. Yep. So that's the difference between an ad. You know where they're sitting. You're targeting them there at that decision point. Whereas the buyer life cycle on socials as your followers, you don't know where they are at all. So your content has to meet each of those different points.
So for a car dealer, let's say, again, and like we said earlier, I think we're at a time now because people are more so on their devices than they were 10 years ago. But you want to be that authority in whatever business you're in. You want to be the authority in that industry. So for a car dealer, I imagine, and my dad owns K-Yard, the first day of the month was check your oil and water day. Then, midway through the month was check your tire pressure and bits and and he will testify to this. I should know better. I come from 2 generations of car dealership owners. I have blown up 2 car motors in my time because I have not put water in them. Why? Because no one has told me to do it. And it sounds stupid, doesn't it? But it's just those we are so busy at the moment. If I saw car dealers out there saying, the first of every month, check your oil and water, it's actually going to click with me. So if I need to buy a car, subconsciously, they're at the top of the shopping list. Whereas if they put an ad in front of me, they're not going to get me, because coming back from social this is just my opinion. I don't think social media should be an advertising platform. I think that's what we've got. Car sales, realestate.com, domain.com, they sell your product. Social for me is about entertaining, educating, and informing.
And using that to build the relationship and to build the trust. And what happens then is the client goes back to, well, who's helped me the most? That whole reciprocity thing. Who's helped me the most? Oh, well, it was Nic's dad. He's the guy that helped me the most. He reminded me first of every month to check my water and oil, and halfway through to check the tire pressure. It's him. So of course I'm going to go back to him and do that. It's really that.
Are we guilty of being too, it's all about me? when we're posting content on social media versus it being about the other person, because I know when I'm on social, if I'm not interested in it, I keep scrolling. And I want to watch what I want to watch. I want to watch what entertains me. Now, I'm massive for TikTok at the moment, excuse me, simply because it's entertaining. I find that Facebook and Instagram, just for me, it's becoming too much ramming listings down my throat, ramming testimonials down my throat, ramming their successes down my throat. That's not entertaining.
No, and we've gotten, and I think we've bought the lie, or we haven't moved on from this whole, sell, buy, me kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we've lost that thing that you're actually trying to convince another person to go with you. So it doesn't actually have to be about you. It has to be about them, because you're trying to convince them. So, and that's why, this approach is so different and it's so needed. And I think people forget it's the small changes that they can make that can make the biggest difference, and can put them out ahead of other people. Because if you tell your prospective vendor that it is all about them and making them feel comfortable, and you understand what their fears are around selling a house or getting it ready for sale, or about signing the contract, or about not making the sale, or about the type of sales process that you're going through. If you understand that, that helps them choose you. That's their oil and water.
Yeah. So on that, I think the one thing I found, and I don't know, when I really started getting into social media for real estate, 2013, 2014, in the East, I'm clearly not Eastern Suburbs real estate agent material. And the one thing I do credit my business success to is authenticity. And I've been out there, I've made the mistakes, my clients can, rest assured, every mistake out there, I've made it. So we won't have a repeat. But I was just myself. And, back when we had the iPhone 3, I'd walk down the street and I'd be doing these ones, and I would swear like a trooper and this, that, and the other. But I think that kind of made me stand out. But I do see agents want to stand out, but they don't want to stand out. They're very scared about being different and doing different content. How can they break that strain? If they want to stand out and they want to, like you were saying, educate and connect with an owner, but they are used to be doing, the lounge room just listed posts, and they look at me in front of the soul board stuff. How can they make that switch? Is that something that they've got to mentally process? Where can they go to sort of connect on I suppose, more of a psychology level? I mean, I'm a marketer, but where can they go or get inspiration from?
So the first thing I want them to know is that they're not alone. And it is not just real estate agents. Most of my clients will come to me going, Kara, I want to get better with my social media marketing. Great, fantastic. Teach them all of the things. And I go, so how's it going? Yeah, I haven't posted. Why? Because I was afraid, that I'd be trolled, because I don't want to be, whatever it is. So they're not alone. That's the first thing I wanted to talk to them about. Where can they go? Well, of course they can come to me. Seriously, there's that. But
don't come to me.
It is, there's a whole toolkit around this kind of stuff that I've actually got as a free download on my website. Plug.
Oh,
But the thing is that some of the ways that you can get around it really quite easily is automating your social media. Mm-hmm. That makes it really, really simple.
And you're talking about scheduling posts and things like that? Yeah. And there's programs out there that do it for you? Yeah.
Yeah, there's dozens of them. The other thing that I tell people is look at what your core value is for you and for your business and for your clients. And if you're behaving outside of what your core value is, so if live video isn't for you, don't do it. You're not going to be authentic. So it's totally missing the mark. If you're not okay with live video, but video is important, record it.
Yeah.
And put it up.
Well, that's the thing. You don't have to post it if you're not happy with it. You can do it again. Yeah.
No. And the other thing is that you don't have to do everything that everybody else is doing just because you think you should. Because you've got clients, like you said, you'll scroll through stuff and you go, nah, that doesn't engage me.
Yeah.
But that's the idea of social media marketing. It's not just to attract people, it's also to repel the people that don't suit you. Okay,
now I'm going to ask you this on a personal level. Coming up to Christmas last year, our business really hit its stride, and we were flying. Come September last year, I was just so wrapped. It was, I think I'd got my business head on and I got some direction and blah, 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 blah. And we were on fire and I was loving life. Then I think I reached a certain level, I suppose a lot of people do, where people want to bring you down a peg. Not that we ever pushed it out. I mean, I was proud, but we didn't ram it down people's throats how good I thought it was. I was just super proud of the business. I had people in the industry, the bullying that came, especially over Christmas, was really difficult, to the point where I was being told to go and throw myself over the balcony. These are people I never met. My sexuality was being shared online. My address was being shared online. I was getting 10 to 15 fake accounts per day contacting me, commenting on my stuff. How can someone who's going through online bullying... Now, I went through that for probably about 6 weeks, really, really difficult. And then throw in the Christmas lockdown that we had here in Sydney, I struggled to actually get up to Newcastle to be with my family for Christmas. So throw all that on top, it was a difficult time. I came back after New Year and I just said, fuck this. I'm not letting anyone. I've built this business. And it was kind of good for me in the way that I am. It's like, you know what? I'm going to make this so good, so big that you're going to have nothing. That was my retaliation. And I don't know where it come from, but for someone that is getting bullied online, and like you said, people and I say it all the time, they don't want to post because they're scared of what people can say. For someone that's scared to post it, or someone that is copying bullying online, what can they do? Because it can be it's a hard thing to police as well.
Yeah, it really is hard. First of all, Nic, I'm really sorry that you had that experience. It sucks. It's like,
it does suck. Yeah, it does suck.
It does suck.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I think the thing that we forget is that it's another person. It's another person on the other end. So there's a couple of things that I do. One, someone who's bullying you, and I say this to my kids, like I've got teenagers. Yeah. It says more about them than it says about you.
Yep.
I'm very grateful I went through online bullying 7 years ago.
Yep.
So thankfully I hit this very early on in my business. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at it.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is that what I tell a lot of people is you've got to have this idea of knowing you've got this circle of people around you who are, and I love Brene Brown, right? And she has this analogy of the arena, and she's taken it from Theodore Roosevelt. But essentially it's who's in the arena with you, getting their ass kicked, who falls down, gets themselves up, dusts themselves out, and puts themselves back in the arena time and again. And they don't have to be in your industry. The top person I have is a woman a friend of mine who's in cancer research. Right. Like, she's a woman at the top of her field in a male-dominated industry. So her ass is getting kicked day after day on this kind of stuff. Yeah. But she stands up and she goes at it again. Yeah. And so, you know what? Unless you are giving me feedback and your name is on that list, I'm not going to pay attention to you. Yeah. Because your opinion of me does not matter because you're not getting your ass kicked.
Yeah, and if you've got to hide behind a fake profile, well, that was the one, I think that was the one thing that was even harder, was because I didn't know who it was. And it started making me really question who was in my circle, because it's like, well, who is this person? How do they know? Who knows my personal, who, like, you know what I mean? And that's what I didn't like, was but on top of that, and there's one more question to wrap it up before I get to that. That was the hardest part, was I started looking at these profiles, these fake profiles, to see what was being said. So I got to an unhealthy level where it's not just that I was copying it, I went to see, or people were sending me screenshots of what was being said about me in private groups. And then I found myself obsessed, like, you know, and talking trash and lies and all that, but you're looking at people interacting. And that was the hard part that I really didn't like, was I found myself going and seeking it out. And I think when I put an end to that, that was massive. But last thing I've got for you, and this is for the kids. I've got 2 nieces, 2 nephews, and they're all under 6 years old. And now, when you and I were growing up, I bet we are both glad that we did not have iPhones or social media. I am really glad I did not have it. Kids these days having access to stuff like this, if the kids are going through a rough time. Now, I remember being a teenager and not wanting to talk to mum and dad about stuff. And I remember, and you probably find this yourself, that at least if people were getting bullied at school, between 9 to 3, it was happening. They could at least go home and it was done. They could have their weekend, this, that, and the other. Now it's constant. For kids going through a tough time on online bullying, or parents suspecting that their kids are getting bullied online, what can happen there? Is that something that you can help them with or guide them in the right direction?
It's not something I can help them with, but I can certainly speak from experience. So my 2, I've got a daughter who's about to turn 16 and a son who's turning 14, or who's just turned 14.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've grown up in the online space, online bullying, all of that kind of stuff. So my kids were not allowed social media until they were 13. Okay. There's that. Because, and they hated me for it. They've hated me for so many things. Mum, but I want to have whatever, you know, game it is. No, you're not having it.
Yeah.
And I know it can be hard when, you know, everybody else is doing it, but Mum, everybody else is doing it. And I sound like my mum, yeah, but if everyone was jumping off the cliff, would you do it?
I hate because no, of course I'm going to do it. Mum. Yeah.
But if I talk to parents for a second,
and
say to them, okay, when we are on social media, just as human beings, let's just forget about age. There are 3 chemicals that are being targeted in your brains. And this is not just by bullying, this is just everything. One is cortisol. It is not a healthy hormone to have constantly surging through your body. It leads to a thing called adrenal fatigue.
Okay.
A 6-year-old with adrenal fatigue would not be fun. Like, it's not a good thing to have a kid burning out because of it. Dopamine. I call it the drug of addiction. So it's a hormone of addiction, right?
Yeah.
You do not want your kids constantly searching out this next hit.
Yeah.
You wouldn't give them anything else to give them the next hit, the next high, the next thing to make them feel good.
Yeah.
Do it with social media.
Yep.
Oxytocin is the next thing. It's a love hormone. They've got so many other ways that they can feel loved.
Yeah.
So many other ways than getting their validation and love and that from an external source. Yeah. So my thing is just don't let them have it, like before 13. After that, neither of them, well, that's not true. The 16-year-old now has her phone in her bedroom. We allow her to do that.
Yeah.
14-year-old, no, he's not allowed to have his phone in his room of a night time. Like when he goes to bed, go to sleep. No, it's actually not good for adults either.
Mine's on the side of the bed. My phone is always within arm's reach, because there might be something I miss. There might be a notification I miss. Yeah,
so that's dopamine.
I know.
He's trying to get that hit. It's like this FOMO is real for Nic.
Yeah, I crave validation. Yeah, I do.
With kids, schools have online bullying policies, and I know my kids attend private schools, so they're a lot hotter on that stuff than public schools are.
Yeah.
There is the police if it gets really bad. My son was told that he may as well go and kill himself at 12.
Shit.
Yeah, it's hard, and it got so bad that, to be perfectly honest, he was suicidal at 13. It does honestly get that bad. And what did we have to do? We had to get counselling, we had to get the school involved, and we had to get him off of social media. So I don't want any other parent to have to actually go through that stuff, because that shit is real. It really is.
And especially at that age when we've got so many hormones and so many things going on, they're trying to fit in. The one thing I had was I knew who I was as a person at 36 at the time, at the start of this year. It wasn't, when you're going through that time as your son was, when they're trying to still figure out who they are, and peer pressure, and they want to be validated and all that kind of thing. It was like I was saying earlier, it was hard enough for us growing up without social. I can't imagine, copying that at that age.
No, I couldn't imagine, because it's relentless. The other thing is, and if I can give a shout out to a friend of mine who's a psychiatrist in this industry. So shout out to Dr. Hugh Kim Lee. So he's a psychiatrist here in Adelaide who deals with gaming addiction. He actually did a special through SBS. And have a look at that. Because if you're looking at addiction, gaming addiction, social media addiction, online addiction, there's some great stuff that Dr. Hugh Kim Lee, so HWUUU, Kim Lee, LE, he has online. It is brilliant. There is help out there, but the easiest thing is just not to let them.
All right, well, my thing is about to run out now. So, final plug before the timer thing does run out. Give yourself a plug. Let everyone know where they can catch you. We'll chuck all your details around. And in a nutshell, what does Kara do?
In a nutshell, Kara is a business coach and consultant that focuses on what motivates your staff, your clients, and yourself to get the most out of your business. You can find me all over as Kara Lambert. So my website is karalambert.com, and everywhere else is at karalambert.com.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
No worries. All right, let me just